Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hi folks, Dave with DBS Tech Talk. And today we are going to talk about the Tin HiFi, whoopsie. We're going to talk about the Tin HiFi T4. I want to thank inToit Reviews for sending these over for review. Do greatly appreciate it. inToit, you rock. Check out the links down below for a link to his channel and give him a subscription if you haven't already. So the Tin HiFi T4 is a in-ear that you're going to probably more than likely need to activate your sensitivity sensor on for this review. So if you haven't already, activate the sensitivity sensor. The Tin HiFi T4s, I did not get the original packaging, but I did get the carrying case from inToit. It's very nicely built, has Tin HiFi on the front of it there, and it opens up. It's nice and hard and gives you plenty of room for your in-ears, gives you some tips. He only included the silicones, did not include foam, so I'm not sure if it comes with foam. And you also get some sort of warranty card. It's a nice carrying case. Wish it was a little smaller so you could put it in your pocket. As far as the tips go, I did not care for either one of the stock silicones. I did find that the blacks were better than the clears as far as sound quality. But comfort-wise, they just neither one of them fitted. And sound quality-wise, they didn't cut the mustard for me. So I went ahead and put some alternate tips on. And the alternate tips, I'll have a link down below. Those are the RHA dual densities. Also, I found that the Dakoni True Wireless little bulb tips work extremely well too if you want to use foams. It does thicken up the sound just a little bit, adds a little bit more warmth to it, and I really enjoy that. Plus it helps with the comfort and the seal. The in-ears themselves are rather small built, and they have a little cylinder bullet shape, I guess you could call it. And then they have a an MMCX connector, not the best built MMCX, and it tends to have issues with connection. So you get a little bit of distortion, and it can kind of cause problems with listening experience. So if you can replace the cable, that's fine, but the cable is actually really, really nice. I do enjoy the build of it. Just wish that the MMCX connector was better. As far as the cable, all rubber. You get a really nice slider and split, and then it goes into a 3.5 with a step down. And I just find that it is a very well built cable. Just wish that the MMCX was better. Comfort wise, you might find it to be okay. I found it to be a little uncomfortable. When it goes into my ears, where the stem comes up from the MMCX connector and just hits in the wrong spot at the top of my ear. And I just found that there was a lot of pressure being put right there. And they just weren't the most comfortable for longer sessions. Not the most uncomfortable in-ear, but it was okay. They are not the best isolating of outside noises either. About 50% or so is about that. So if you're in a loud environment, these can cause a problem. And that's one of the flaws, is that they don't block out outside noises real well. So you'd have to raise the music. And I find that raising the volume of your music causes these to have some sonic flaws that we're going to discuss. So it's a passing grade build quality and comfort, but it's not meh sound. So let's start with what I enjoy, and then we will get into the not so enjoyable. I enjoy the bass. The bass is nice and linear and has enough impact in it that you have a little bit of a fun factor, but also has really good details. It isolates and separates out instruments extremely well in the bass areas, and you get a very nice analytical, neutralish sound in the bass with just enough of a amount of impact and a detail that will keep things moving along and not sound boring. The mids have nice and natural tones to them. They're transparent, and you have a good amount of clarity for the most part until you move into the upper mid region. Timbre is slightly on the metallic side on brighter songs and on brighter sources. But for the most part, the mids are very pleasant. Has good isolation and separation, again, of your instruments and your vocalists, and you can tell where they are on a stage, whether they're left or right or in the center, but it does do left and right better than it does center imaging. The upper mids to lower treble region is kind of hit or miss for me. It depends on your source. If you have a warmer source, it'll sound a little more controlled. And if you're listening at lower volumes, it'll sound more controlled. If you have a source that's a little bit on the brighter side, and also you tend to listen to a little louder volumes, you will end up with a brighter signature there, and they will sound a little shouty. Also, they showcase some sibilance and graininess within that region. It's not the cleanest area as you go farther out into the treble region. It's not as noticeable, again, if you have lower volumes or a warmer source. Treble extends well. You get nice air, very good details within the treble, but at times it can be a little pinpoint and razor sharp on the detailing of the presentation. And especially as you raise the volume levels, it will become more intense, and these can become painful. But as I said, if you keep the volumes a little bit less, it'll tame it down just a little bit. Also, warmer sources tend to tame it down and mellow it out a little bit. Soundstage is really not that big. It's not intimate, but it's kind of average, maybe a little below average, but it does a good job of imaging. And so you get some nice precise accuracy of instruments and placement within the soundstage. Soundstage also has nice airiness and good natural sound within it, but it's just not the widest, and it does feel a little bit compact. So the T4 definitely has some flaws, but I found that the flaws actually were more gear related than they are actually with the IEM themselves. It's a very bizarre IEM for me. As I do with all IEMs, when I get them in for review, the first thing I do is I'll take out a dongle and plug it into my Samsung Note 10 Plus and just start listening. And the first listen, I was using the X-Duo Link, and I was like, man, these things are bright, and thin sounding. They're not that great. And the more I listened to it, the more I actually hated the T4. I was not enjoying them whatsoever. And so I changed over, went to another dongle. So I went from the X-Duo Link, and I went over to the Razer DAC amp, and I still had that. It was still really bright sounding, very grainy, and it just wasn't pleasant to my ears. I was just lacking in the control in the treble. And so I went over and changed out, and I went to the ADV Access Port Lite, and that warmed them up, thickened up the bass a little bit too much for my preference, but it tamed the treble. But it seemed like I was missing some air, and I was missing details, and so I was really disappointed. I was like, man, something is wrong with these in-ears. And so I started changing out tips, and I went from the stocks, I went to the RHA densities, I went to the Deconi TW True Wireless, and went to Deconi other bullets, and I went to many others, tried spin fits, and you name it. I tried all kinds, and finally I just settled on the RHA dual density, and that they just sounded the best, as far, at least on phone. Then I started to test things out on the desktop, and that was a really bad idea. They just did not play well whatsoever on the 789, even on low gain. very low volume and they were shouty and just sibilant and oof, just no. Went to the LCX and the CTH and the warmth came through and it tamed them and mellowed them out a little bit, but again, raised that volume just a little bit and these things became extremely shouty and razor blades. Went over to the Geshelli Archel 2 and it still had too much power for them. Went over to the 788, which plays really well with IEMs, and it was a little bit smoother, a little more enjoyable, but still had to really watch the volume knob. So desktop wasn't cutting it, and so I was like, last chance, Tin HiFi, last chance. And then the HiFi hip deck came in, and so I was like, oh, here's a good chance. You know, this is a perfect opportunity. And so I plugged my phone into the hip deck and plugged in the T4 and started listening and was like, oof, no, I mean, it just didn't sound good. It just had a tinniness and a metallic sound to it and a bright signature, and I was really starting to get annoyed. And then I took the hip deck and plugged it into my PC and started running some MQA off of it, and all of a sudden the T4 came to life. Sounded a lot better, a lot more smooth. Still had its moments of shoutiness and it still has that brighter tendency to it, but it was a lot more controlled. And I was like, okay, this is better. This is a start, but I can't. These are portable. Should be able to listen to it. And I was really kind of annoyed. Then I got out my HiFiMan Mega Mini and I started to listen on it, and I really enjoyed it. It had a nice smoothness to it, a little bit robust warmth to it, romanticism, but it was just a little bit thick for my preferences on some tracks. And so I was like, but that's a start for portable. And then I moved over to the EchoBox Explorer, and this actually was really enjoyable. Had a nice brighter, not super bright tone, but a nice lively energy tone. Had natural sounds to it, and it just was enjoyable with the T4. The bass was there, the treble was there, the mids sounded good. Every now and then, depending on whether or not it was a badly recorded track or not, I actually enjoyed the T4. I was really surprised. And then I went over to the Pioneer XDP30R, and the same thing, except I had to turn the gain all the way down to low. And on every single one of these devices, volume had to be 50% or less. Normally more like 40%, 33%. It was crazy. So these are extremely sensitive, and they don't take well to power. You can overpower them and they become extremely shouty and sharp and sibilant. And so I want to like them, but I can't. They don't do it for me. They're too bright, and they don't have the wow factor for me that I'm looking for when it comes to an IEM. I don't enjoy them. Comfort wise, sound wise, they're meh. They're not a hate, and they're definitely not a love. They're just kind of meh. Do I recommend them? No. Not unless you really want a true, brighter, neutral sounding IEM. Then yeah, you can. These would be it for you. But if you're looking for a little bit more of a fun IEM, nah. They just don't cut it for me. They have too many flaws. The upper mids and lower treble has too much graininess and shoutiness tendencies in it. The sensitivity is a major problem. Very hard to find a source that can make them be happy. And the bass is just, it's good, but sometimes you just want a little bit more. And the soundstage is not quite wide enough. Good try, but not for me. This has been Dave with DBS Tech Talk. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to this video. Speaking of next videos, somewhere on the screen is going to be a notification and subscription link. If you haven't already, check those off. And then check out the links down below for inToit Reviews channel link, and also for the gear that was mentioned, and for the tips that were mentioned. Also for playlists and PayPal, Discord, emails, all that kind of stuff. Check out the links below. Thanks.